and welcome to the first edition of Mind the Gap, a weekly program on Consumer Alert TV that helps draw attention to everyday avoidable gaps in customer service delivery with the overall aim of helping to strengthen existing relationships between brands and their consumers. I am Iremofe Kofoworola. On this edition, we will be examining the subject communication gaps between brands and their customers. And before I introduce to you our guests, let me give a brief background to our discussion. Every brand starts with the goal of being trusted, loved, remembered, and recommended among several competitors. However, gaps emerge between brands and their customers somewhere along the line. Communication gaps need to be bridged so as to improve customers' expectations of a brand's perception and reality. However, with evolving market dynamics and brands failing to tailor their messages to Nigeria's diverse ethnic groups, how well can brands create the right perception and reality in the minds of their consumers? Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is Joba Ojelabi. He's a marketing communications professional who specializes in crafting and executing strategies that elevate brand presence and deepen customer engagement. He currently leads the marketing team at Flash Change Limited, a fintech company. Welcome on the show, Joba.
Hi, thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Good to have you here today.
It's a pleasure being here.
And I must say, you look so good.
You're too kind. Thank you.
All right, to begin with, in practical sense, what does communication gap between brands and their customers mean in practical sense?
Okay. So in the practical context of it, I think communication gaps between brands and their consumers is similar to any kind of communication gap, whether it's between two people, whether it's between a people and an institution. Basically, it's the same realities of any communication gap. So either one person is not saying anything and another person has expectations, or one person is saying a thing, another person is hearing something else, or or they're just not on the same page. So usually the communication process is that when a sender has sent a message, a receiver has received that message, and even in good cases, feedback is sent just to confirm that process. So when that happens, or when there's a break in that flow between a brand and its target market, its consumers, then you can liken that, or you can call that a communication gap, as it were.
Interesting one. So now we all know that I love the part where you mentioned feedback,
Yes.
and we know that communication happens or takes place using different channels.
Yes.
In that process. So and in the long process, if a brand has an intended message or perceived message out there, and it eventually gets to the consumers or the customers, now they have their perception and they have their reality that they might have created based on what the brands have communicated to them. Now, looking at that kind of scenario now, what factors would you really say bring about communication gaps between brands and their consumers?
So it's, I think it's at this point, it's important to go back to the process of branding itself, right? This is a mug. If the brand that created the mug wanted to sell it or brand it, as it were, that process requires elevating it from just something to drink water to something that you can connect with emotionally. Either it's the mug for fathers, or it's the mug for... You just create a story, a lovely story around, and you elevate this thing that typically is just a tool to drink water. Now, that typically is the proper process around branding, adding emotion to the functional bit of things, and of course, connecting with the market, establishing that emotional connection with the market. Now, usually, because especially for small to middle scale businesses, there's not a lot of intention that goes into that process. You just want to either get money, make sales, or do something. So it's usually done haphazardly. And sometimes you find factors like brands making ambiguous promises. You find things like brands over-promising. And also, it's a range of things. But I think that the most simplistic way to define it is if that branding process,
Yeah.
that marketing process, if it's not intentional, if it's not carefully planned and executed, there's a very high likelihood that somewhere along the line, something will break. And that would, of course, establish a communication gap. So either you are saying, oh, we'll make the best mugs in the world, and the product does not match. Or you are saying, buy 2 mugs, get 1 free, and people get there and they get 1 mug. So there's usually, when that process is not intentional and follows the entire framework around marketing and branding, you find all these things emerge. So it can be, I think that's the most fundamental factor, really, because that then can then spill into various other factors. Just as I said, over-promising, ambiguity, some vagueness,
Even language.
some even outright lying. Sometimes you find that a salesperson, in an attempt to close a sale, just goes and make a very funny thing, funny promise.
I mean, I'm going to speak on that because, I mean, sometimes I've, let me say, on few occasions I've experienced that, whereby, like you said, the salesperson is just trying to make some ambiguous promises, and I think it could be as a result of internal communication. Now, for instance, I work in this department in an establishment, and this is what I have been communicated to concerning this mug. Like, here's an example. Then, in the long process, it has gone through several chains of communication. Then it gets to, let's say,
the consumer.
To the consumer. But even internally, you don't have a clear communication regarding what we are selling. So that's why I think sometimes that could also be a factor. I want you to explain more on that internal communication gap that can happen.
Placement. That's your distribution strategy. What's the strategy to get this thing from production to final consumer? What's that channel like? And final is promotion, which a lot of us often think is just that's the only thing that concerns marketing, but it's just one element of the mix. But another reality that you find in the business context, in the business sense, is that every pillar of the marketing mix requires that marketing as a department collaborate with other parts of a business. So in product, for instance, because I work in fintech, product means that I have to work with the developers, the product design guys, the product managers to understand what are we building. Oh, my users want this feature. Can we have it on? So I have to work closely with them. For pricing, you have to work with your finance department. What's our profits strategy? How do we make it profit? What's our pricing strategy? So I can't come as marketing and say, oh, this is the price. I have to work very closely with the finance department. For FMCG businesses, for instance, the placement strategy or the place strategy, which is distribution, requires that you work very closely with your supply chain. Because they're the ones that will ensure that that drink you produced in the factory at Songwater gets to the consumer in Kaduna. Exactly. So you have to work very closely with your supply chain team. And of course, promotion, heavily, sometimes you outsource creative agencies, sometimes you do it internally. But what that shows you is that it's never really a one department. Exactly. So even the marketing mix, by its very nature, already puts you in the place of interaction. So if there is a flaw, a gap internally in communication, and that's why internal communication, as it were, is an art. Your internal publics, your internal audience, and that even goes beyond staff, because staff, one angle, but there's also the management. Sometimes there's board. Exactly. Every internal stakeholder has to be carried along. So if there is a gap in there, easily, in fact, there's no gain saying that it will reflect. You can't tell a salesperson to go sell this mug and he doesn't even know what it's made of.
Exactly.
So what you find these days is that organizations are more intentional about knowledge sharing around the product.
Even training.
Exactly. Just teach them, help them understand. Oh, this is why this mug is different from the other mug. We use this to make it, or we use that to make it, and things like that. So it must start with your internal stakeholders, because they're the first ambassadors, really.
Interesting. I mean, I love how you so much shed light on the marketing mix, because sometimes people just think it's all about the promotions alone. They just have this mug. They just want to get to
just sell it. Just do an ad and all that.
In the process, they forget that on the product, on the pricing and all of these things, they are very crucial in ensuring that consumers are satisfied. in the long run, because at the end of the day, it's all about satisfaction.
Yes.
Now let us look at one of the communication gaps that could happen now is misaligned information.
Mm-hmm.
Now you stated earlier, and I love the analogy about the mug.
Mm-hmm.
This is for fathers. I just assume this is for fathers.
Fathers.
Then you come to me and you tell me, oh, this mug, when you take it, your kids, you know, it allows their beverages to be so hot, and that's an example. Then I buy it and I realize at the end of the day it's not even
It's
for
not doing
kids,
the same thing.
but for fathers. But there is an misaligned information in that process.
Mm-hmm.
Now since I've gotten the misaligned information, I bought the product. Now let's go to feedbacks, of which you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned earlier on that. Now you have feedbacks, of which I then come back to you and say this mug is not serving the purpose of which I bought it for.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the role of feedback in shaping or ensuring that communication gaps are bridged in between brands and
their consumers? I think that, and I say this very modestly, for marketing professionals, feedback really is core. Because a lot of times we tend to treat the consumers as numbers or as inanimate objects. Oh, targets, and you profile them and it's this, is that. But they are actually living things. They are people with feelings and all that. So it's important, it's integral that sometimes, even in your building process, you ask, I want to build this. Would you like it? How would you think about, what do you think about a mug that can do this or a mug that can do that?
More or less like carrying out a survey.
Exactly. So it's every great marketing professional knows that you can't just sit behind a desk in an office and continue to assume. The research has to happen. You must deploy surveys. You must, in fact, bring people in, have them try the product and give you feedback even as you build, right? So it's very crucial, really, in the marketing process. And even after deployment, for instance, to a mass market, continuously, because the truth is that the variables are never static. That a person likes your product today does not mean they'll like it tomorrow.
Exactly.
So if that preference changes, you need to be aware so that you can prepare for what they like next or position for it. So if you're not intentional about collecting feedback, that will not happen. And you just fade into oblivion. So the feedback part of it is crucial, as it were.
Wow, so interesting. And I just wanted to lay so much emphasis on feedback because I know that sometimes you made mention of the fact that even consumers, their preferences and their choices it changes. So as a producer or manufacturer of a product, if you are not aware of that fact, they might like the mug today and tomorrow they don't. There's a change in their taste. Now let's look at the role of language in communication, because that is a whole lot. We can't undermine the fact that language is very crucial. For instance, I want to, we have heterogeneous
the culture
and all that, diverse audience, but you have a particular product for them. How do you read them using them? Because it has happened in different sectors, telecommunication, banking, whereby banks will promise you this, even they promise you all of these things, and at the end of the day, even markets whereby we have market dynamics whereby sometimes they do promos and all of that, like you said, buy two get four or whatever they want to use. Now let us look at how language can help in effectively communicating the intended message of a brand, and in the process whereby there's misaligned information, how can they still use language to reshape that? I don't know if that is clear. It's
a tedious question, and I'll tell you why. So I hear two questions in one. Language, as it were, and that's a full conversation by itself. And on the other hand is the content of the message itself. Sometimes the content is all over the place. Sometimes the content is not clear. Sometimes it's not true. Right? But the reality of, so I'll start with the language part of it. Now, language as it is, or as it were rather, is a very strong pillar of culture. And the reality of any communication is that it always happens within a cultural context, right? So you might say something to this group of people, and it means this. But you say it to a different group of people, and it means something different. So if you're not aware of the changing cultural context, or if not even aware of the cultural context at all, I mean, you would lose some people. And in fact, you might even offend some people, right?
The
So
cultural sensitivity.
exactly, and that's where language comes in. So you say this thing that, oh, we are happy people. That same thing you say it to some people, and you're like, no, that's not
They're
the.
not even happy.
Exactly. That's so you must be aware, even beyond language. Language is one critical part of it, but beyond language, you must be aware, and that's why I'm able to connect it to the second part of the question, which is in the content of the message itself. Sometimes the content is actually it's supposed to be very sincere and not. I mean, you don't mean any harm. You don't even mean any harm. But because you have not paid attention to cultural context, you might make a mistake, or you might say something that you did not intend, and the people you're saying it to will hear something different, and your communication goes. Probably even set yourself up. And we've seen campaigns like that. I mean, I don't want to start naming names, but you see a brand that just comes, does this campaign, puts it on social media, and it feels like, wow, that's until people start canceling them and saying, no, that's not sensitive. You are not, you get it. So sometimes it is just that awareness of context. So I would like to excuse some brands. Again, some brands do it intentionally. They don't want, because they don't have any real serious promise. They just put one very ambiguous, exactly. They just put one very ambiguous promise in there and let it fly. But for most brands, you find out that it's just a case of not being culturally aware.
Wow, this is getting more insightful. Please, let's go on a short break. We'll be right back.
Hey there, do you know in the world today, everyone is a consumer, and as consumers, we all have the right to be heard.
In Nigeria today, as a consumer, you have all right to product information, right to fair pricing, right to return goods, right to product labeling, right to fair dealings, and a lot more.
Well then, have you heard about the new media channel?
Consumer Hala TV.
Consumer Hala TV.
Consumer Hala TV.
At Consumer Hala TV, our goal is to inform and educate consumers in Nigeria with insightful news alongside development within the fast-paced world of consumers through well-researched, specialized, and analytical content.
Our vision at Consumer Hala TV is to create an engaging platform that provides right connections for meaningful brands in Nigeria, thus creating a more caring world for consumers where business thrive.
And guess what? Our Consumer Hala brand is the first consumer complaint resolution portal in Nigeria, powered by a 72-hour feedback mechanism. We offer consumer advocacy, informative talk shows, branding promotions, advertising, and lots more. Connect with us via our YouTube channel at Consumer Hala TV. Follow us on our Facebook page, Consumer Hala TV, our Instagram page, Consumer Hala TV, and do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscription is free. Consumer Hala TV. At Consumer Hala TV, you deserve to be heard.
At Consumer Hala TV, you deserve to be heard.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, you are watching Mind the Gap, and we are discussing communication gaps between brands and their customers in Nigeria. And you know what? If you have not subscribed to our channel, please click on the subscribe button right away. Still with me in the studio is Joba Ojelabi. Yeah, marketing lead at Flash Change Limited. Before the break, we laid so much emphasis on on the marketing mix, and we also talk about how language can be
Yes.
so effective in, delivery of whatever intended message a brand has. Now let us look at the fact that sometimes as a consumer, you get this intended message wrong and you bought the product. Then you are trying to seek redress in any form, because it could be very, so draining sometimes. It could be so overwhelming that they promised me this thing and
I'm not getting.
eventually I bought it and I'm not getting. So let us look at the role of government agency like the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC. So what role does an agency like that play in protecting customers' interests? When in a situation by their trust have been broken, how can they come in?
Okay, I think that easily government agencies have a fundamental mandate to protect the mass market, the masses, the citizens of the country. And yes, FCCPC is one example. There's also, even on the advertising front, agencies like ARCON, Advertising Regulatory Council, and a couple of others. And of course, mandate is you don't go about advertising your product as something that it isn't.
Exactly.
Or making some very fictitious or even very
Promises.
claims. Although that's not to take away the reality that sometimes, just as we have put it, it's a gap. The brand is saying, sometimes in an effort to be overly clever, they're saying something, but the consumer is hearing something else. And then the consumer goes on to purchase with certain expectations, and those expectations are not met. And then you find, in fact, if they report you to FCCP, you might be lucky. You find out some people go out there on social media and just take your brand to the gutters. But it is really crucial. And I think that's where clarity, as much as can be. You find a number of brands try to hide behind fine print, or terms and conditions, all those things. Say, oh, we already said this is what it is. It only comes in this size, or that all those. If you follow those, what I ordered, what I got, if you follow those trends, you see a lot of dynamics in there. But really, I think it's a matter of clarity. At the point of purchase, the brand is obligated to be as clear in terms of their offering to the consumer. That helps guide expectation. So if I tell you that I'm selling you a white mug, it should not come in cream, it should not come in
purple,
it should
in grey.
it should come in white. Right? So yes, totally agree with you. The agencies are then responsible for mediating, because without these mediators, it's going to be all over the place. The brand claims to be right. I said this. The consumer said, no, I heard this. And it's just back and forth. But at least with these agencies, there are minimal standards that must be met in terms of quality, in terms of even communication, the things things that are being said, right? So yeah, very important to have these agencies.
Interesting. I love the analogy and all that. So looking at it now, earlier when I was introducing this program, I made mention of the fact that every brand, their dream is to ensure that they can be remembered, they can be recommended. So now that they have that mindset, they have the goal of creating such dream in the minds of their consumers amongst different competitors. Now, how can brands then create the right perception and reality in the minds of their consumers, despite sometimes there might not be clarity and all that, but how can they ensure that, yes, they really ensure that the right perception and reality is created in the minds of consumers?
This again is branding 101.
Please take us through it.
You have to pay for the masterclass.
You've taken us through the journey of marketing 101. This is branding 101 now.
You have to pay for the masterclass.
All right. Just
but yes, to address the question, it's an entire process, right? And if done properly, you'd find that it's as much as it can be tedious, sometimes expensive. It comes with a lot of reward. And I want you to think of your favorite brands. You don't have to tell me what they are, but think of them and think of why you love them. You'd find some things that cut across. For one, it's that they solve a problem for you. They solve a problem, whether it's a basic functional problem, whatever the problem is on Maslow's hierarchy. If it's food, if it's hunger, if it's shelter, if it's a social, whatever it is, they solve it. It solves a problem for you. And then it then goes beyond solving that problem to establish an emotional connection, right? And that really is it. As simple as it might sound, it has taken some brands decades to achieve that connection with its target market, such that you start out with identifying a need. What problem do you want to solve? What gap are you feeling? Is your product, is your service feeling, right? And from there, you create or curate stories, because sometimes the stories are there. The stories already exist. You are just spotlighting them to help people appreciate them better. I was sharing a commercial, a telco commercial with some people I was having a conversation with recently. And I was showing them how in that commercial there was not a single mast, or it was just around the value, what great connection can do, really. And the story was curated around that, and it was beautiful to see. So sometimes the best brand, you see that they transcend just features to more intricate emotional benefits. This is a mug. At the most fundamental, it helps me drink my coffee. But this was the mug I used on the day I won my first job. This was the same mug that I used on the day I got promoted, my first promotion. So same mug, and it's just, there's been a lot of stories curated around this mug over time, such that a brand can then go on to say, we are a mug making brand, but we're the mug for your first job. And they sell to entry-level people, and their story is curated around that. So beyond the functional, they've elevated. They are now more intentional about emotional, and you find that even their campaigns, their entire being is built around that, right? So the branding process requires that, yes, I get, as a business, you must think on the short term. Okay, we must make revenue so we stay alive. But the long term requires that emotional connection. So be very intentional about it. And one mistake that a lot of brands also make is trying to be too many things to too many people. You can't. It never really works. You can't be this and this. You can't be too many things to too many people. Really. So it's easier when you identify the one thing that you're really good at,
and
and
your
that you
target
can be.
audience.
Exactly, and to this specific set of people that you want to be that thing to, and you live that in your entire being as an organization, in the things you say, in the way you sell your products and things like that. So at the end of the day, once you've identified the problem, the need, you've curated your stories around it, you then have to be consistent with it. Because that's another very strong requirement of branding. You can't be red yesterday and be green tomorrow. People will not identify you that way. You must be consistent.
I love that part of consistency that you made mention of, because you look at, I was following through the explanation you were giving, and you look at sometimes that even consumers are no longer emotionally connected to a product, and even the manufacturers don't even know, because they refuse to see that their feedbacks that they are giving, but they are not data to just analyze that, oh, this is it, and the loyalty to the brand, it begins to drop. You understand? So I just think brands, they need to really work on feedbacks, like you mentioned earlier on. Now let's also look at another factor which could cause communication gaps between brands and their customers and their consumers, in the sense that sometimes you look at the channels of communication. You go on social media, probably their Facebook page, you go to their YouTube page or whatever platform they've
using.
decided to use. Then you go to the website. The information on each of these platforms, the information on it, it doesn't align. You see a different thing on the website, you see a different thing on their Facebook page. So in that kind of situation, how do they even, there's a communication gap already.
Yes,
In that sense. So how can they ensure that all through these channels that they use or platforms in passing information to their intended or target audience, how can they ensure that yes, everything aligns?
Okay, I think I'm going to again refer to the last point I made. Consistent. See, the thing about identifying your one thing and being true to it is that it's easy for you to replicate, irrespective of media, right? If you have said, I want to be white, that's what I want to be. Whether it's a website, whether it's Instagram, whether it's whatever it is, as long as you stay true to that, white. If you have said, I want to be the fastest food delivery service in Lagos, and you are staying true to that, whether it's on your website, that's what you write. If it's on your social media pages, in fact, if somebody asks your staff randomly on the street, that is clear, because that's one thing you have held on to. You are probably living and trying very actively to deliver on. It becomes tedious or difficult to be inconsistent. What usually happens, or what usually causes that inconsistency is, first, either you're trying to be too many things to too many people, or your internal stakeholders are not aligned. Exactly. So one person built the website, they don't even know who you are. Another person created your social media pages, they also have a different perception of who you are. Somebody else maybe is handling your what's it called, the customer service phones, and they're saying something different.
Please, just permit me within a few seconds to say this. I just, something resonated with me when you said that, because there was a I think a statement that was put out one time by the particular brand, and in statement it's read they instead of using we. So like you can say, like a third party. So I mean
things
that,
like
that works.
So things like that you start to see when your internal stakeholders are not even aligned. So that alignment has to start from internal, from inside rather. And once that is done, once you've been able to successfully achieve that internal alignment, and everybody knows what your brand really stands for, what you or who you are, everybody involved, I'm sure that you would be able to achieve consistency across, even beyond the digital channels.
Interesting one. So I would want to ask this question. How well do you think Nigerian companies have really fared when it comes to communication? And sometimes when there are communication gaps, how well do you think how well do you think they have been able to bridge such communication gaps?
They are putting me on the spot.
Let me
Nigerian companies. So the thing about it is, there's a lot of companies in this country. A lot. Especially within the small to middle scale category. And maybe that's where you find the gaps a lot of times, because it is the same person that founded the business that is trying to be the marketing lead, that is that is customer service.
The man of many parts.
It's the same person, either because they can't afford talent, or they can't they can outsource it yet. So, and when that happens, of course, the gaps will show now. If somebody's not trained, if the person has some training in marketing and branding, of course, easily you notice the difference. But if they are not, these gaps will show. But I don't want to be the doomsday sayer and say, oh, a lot of Nigerian brands don't, because you still have a lot of brands that have it figured out and are doing great job.
With
their communication. Very empathetic, very clear, very willing to help. Product is great. So there's a lot of great brands out there doing great stuff, really. And of course, there's the on the other side as well, brands that have not really hacked it, or that are not really great at it yet. And we can only hope that those brands be a little more intentional, irrespective of resources. I believe that even if you can't afford the best of talent, sometimes by just being a little more intentional about these things, you can get better at them. At least up until the point where you can then afford either to outsource or to bring in great talent to handle them. But you find that some of these things are not even that over the top. It's just staying true to who you really are, starting by even identifying who you really are. What problem are you solving for your target consumer, and how are you building stories around that problem for the consumer? So yeah, I know maybe because I do this, it sounds simplistic to me, but I think it's just intentional. It really always starts with intention.
I love how you did so much emphasis on the intention. I was going to ask you that, you know, in the course of your journey as a marketing lead, you know, as a communication expert, are there scenarios whereby you've been able to solve any communication gaps that happen between a brand and and the consumers? Because you mentioned, like, the way you mentioned sounded so simple to you, so I'm quite sure there have been cases like that you have to step in. So what did you actually do in such situations?
I'm not sure my NDA allows me to say too much, but I'll give some examples. So there's this brand I once had to work on, right? And it's interesting because when the brand started out, the goal was not very clear. The founder was just trying to set up something, right? But, and I didn't even join at the beginning. I wasn't with the brand at the beginning. But after a while, because he's my friend, brought me on and said, "Oh, please help take a look at this." And the first thing I did was, instead of having to overthink these things ourselves, right? You're building for a set of people. Just ask them, why are you using this product?
Survey.
Simple as that. And we went ahead. Why are you using this? And they gave me very interesting feedback. I'm using it because of the customer service. And I just, then and there I told him, that's all, really, because that's your USP, as it were. That, we are able to offer you round the clock top customer service, really. So it felt like, I know, but that's very regular. I'm like, if people are saying they're choosing you because of it, then clearly in that industry, it's not a regular thing. It means they're probably not getting it from your competition. So sometimes that's how you, even from the feedback, it's how you're able to describe who you are or what you want to be to the user. Because just as I said, sometimes they already have that perception. And all you need to do is extend it and amplify it, really. So it can be quite systematic. My people or my customers are dropping off, they're no longer buying. I'm like, have you done any survey at all? Even if it's asking 1, 2, 3, 4 people, what happened? You've not bought from us in a while. Just ask them.
And that's the exactly feedback.
So it really is. We can't overemphasize feedback because I don't see how you can build for somebody, or say you want to give somebody a solution and you did not ask for their input. Say, as much as, you might get away with it a little bit at the beginning, but as things start to evolve, it won't work. You have to be very intentional. In fact, if possible, bring them in the building process. That, we've built this for you, you like it, what should we build for you next?
Interesting.
Things like that. So things like that. The consumer is not one abstract person on the other hand. They have to come in the room and be part of it.
And be emotionally connected.
In fact, that is how you must strengthen the connection. When they know that, we built this together, they're able to continue choosing you.
I mean, you've given us so much marketing strategies, so much on branding today, and I'm quite sure different brands and viewers must have learned a whole lot. Now, before I let you go, because of our time, just this personal one, you are an author. I mean,
Yeah, you got me, yes.
Yeah, so let's talk about, just in a few minutes, about your, would you want to tell us, I think it's poetry,
yes, it is.
Right? Yeah, so would you just want to tell us a bit about that?
Okay. So yes, I recently published a collection of poems. Poems I've been, because I on the days when I'm not worrying about marketing or doing other stuff, I like to read and sometimes scribble, write poetry. And I just, okay, let me put a couple of these poems together. So yes, I put them together in a book called The Ones Before You.
The Ones Before You.
Yes, it's a collection of 50 poems.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, 50 poems. Don't worry, they're not long poems. I'm not it. 50 poems across different themes. But it's one project that I really enjoyed doing. And yeah, buy and read.
Interesting. And please go get what's the name again?
The Ones Before You.
The Ones Before You. I'm quite sure you've learned so much. He has given so much arc on branding today and communication gaps. So please ensure you get that. Wow, thank you so much for
Thank you.
being here today.
Thank
I
you for
mean, I
having me.
wish you could go on and on, but I mean, this has been so insightful on today's edition of Mind the Gap. So this is all we can expound on Mind the Gap today. And as a brand, misaligned message can affect your dealings with your customers. And you know, consumers are kings, and the survival of your business lies on how well you treat them to quality service. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. So please do well to subscribe, share, and also comment. And I'm quite sure we will be seeing your face some other time.
That's what I can.
Yeah, all right. So I am Iremufe Kufurola, and good afternoon.